everybody. I'm Mandi of Ecstatic Astrology, and I'm here with Christa of Practical Astros. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. We're going to do the March forecast. Um, or I was thinking of another word for it because this
Mm,
feels like we're going to get pretty deep with the eclipses coming
hmm
and the retrogrades, a few of them. Do you want to start or do you want to go look at February?
Um, let's look ahead to March because I feel like there's
Yeah,
there's there's
too
plenty to talk
much.
about.
There is. Okay, well, this is the calendar I came up with. And we start the month off with a bang with Venus going retrograde.
Yep.
Venus retrograde for me is really neat because it's 40 days and it's related to so many myths in antiquity. I mean, you have the Bible as well, the 40 days, 40 nights in the desert with Jesus. You have the descent of Inanna. And so with Venus retrograde, I always call it a reevaluation, but I think also there's a sense that we are maybe deprived a little. I mean, you in ancient times they couldn't see Venus for 40 days, and I think that's where the myth comes from. So this
Yeah.
bright star that they used to mark different events was gone. So
Yeah.
when you call Venus a benefic and then in that way can't see it in the sky, it does make sense that you kind of are a little bit deprived of the beauty of Venus, you know?
Yeah. It's like any planet that's slowed down. I think some planets like to be or don't like to be slowed, Mars and point over others. But any planet that slows down, it's like, why is it slow? What does it have to go back to? That retrograde motion of returning back. Like Venus is going to be returning from Aries back over into Pisces where she exalts. So in that way, it's like she gets to go back and revisit kind of the place that she's most well taken care of. But that journey to get there and back, it's part of this rebirth cycle that these planets do. And yeah, the phrase, I like this phrase anyway, but the phrase that has just been bubbling up just kind of organically in so many situations is there's the phrase fortune favors the bold, but I like Venus favors the bold. And it's telling that that phrase is coming up while she's in Aries because it is a very bold place for Venus to be. And you know that boldness that she gets to kind of get the taste of in Aries, she's going to turn retrograde there and go back over into Pisces. But then so is Mercury. Her dance with Mercury over that same kind of boundary line between Aries and Pisces. I'm interested just to kind of watch to see how they weave. Uh, and we get a couple of Kazimis in the midst of it too. I mean, they're the conjunctions. I was just looking at all of the conjunctions that are happening this month. There's a lot. There's a lot of togetherness, for better or worse, that's happening during the month of March. So
Yeah, and it's turns around. I like to think of these like planets as anthropomorphized sometimes, and
oh,
it's turning
100%.
around, you know,
Yeah.
at 10 degrees of Aries. So if any of you watching this video have anything at around 10 degrees of cardinal signs, this will be off the bat. And I think when a planet slows down, it's louder. I
Yeah.
mean, it's Venus though, but Venus can get angry. There is this thing with Venus myths that I think warrior goddess can come out, especially with Venus and Aries. So I think Venus being relationships and how we love and what we value in Aries, which is a very self-concerned sign. I mean, it's about survival. There is a sense that we have to reevaluate how we are uh, moving through the world in that Aryan way, how we have an ego, how we take action, how we move and are motivated. Is there
Yeah.
anything you have to say about that?
Yeah. I mean, and also because Aries is ruled by Mars, which is currently not in good condition. And, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is also not in great condition, but it's at least forward. It's going to be getting out of Gemini and into its place of exaltation later this summer. But up until, I guess it's going to be direct before we get to this point. It will be direct on February 23rd. Lord willing, the creek don't rise and it decides to go retrograde again. But, by this point, it'll still be in Cancer. It's not going to get out of Cancer when it's like April 18th.
Yeah,
It's a while. So we have
it's a
this
long
whole
time.
time where that Aries house is ruled by a planet that is not at home. And so that is definitely adding the flavor to defending what you want and really fighting for it, and maybe it being a little messier and more emotionally charged just from that fact alone.
Mhm. And to have Mars in the moon sign, which is why on this calendar I put when the moon is going to transit, and the
Mm-hmm.
day Venus goes retrograde, the moon is even in
Mm-hmm.
Aries.
Yeah.
To me, it's just kind of like a cosmic giggle, it's like we're just
Mm-hmm.
at all the Aries stuff that we can. But I think Mars being fallen for so long, is it fall or detriment in Cancer?
It's
One of the two.
it's uh it's in fall because it exalts in Capricorn.
That's
Yeah.
right. So Mars being fallen in especially the moon sign, there is a sense of this wounded warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And then Venus going retrograde in Mars sign, it's almost like I need to kind of fix this. It feels like we need to fix something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's, love, money for whoever you are, wherever you are, and whatever it's doing in your chart, but it is probably going to be a pretty loud start to the month because of that, I think.
Yeah, and just having, retrogrades go over lines like that, you can look at the areas in the Pisces houses in your chart and see where's the connection there, because Venus is going to start that on the first, and then Mercury is going to also do that later on in the month. They're going to be kind of telling the story of those two houses through the maybe clunky retrogradation. But there's something there's that Cinderella slipper to go back and get so that you can go forward. And so it's not inherently just difficult for no reward. I think that there is definitely reward with a Venus retrograde to go back to. Just a real, like, a keyword for Venus retrograde is often ex-lovers come back into the picture. So just, if you have an ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend that comes back and like wants to try things, or you only remember like the honeymoon period the first time around, just be real wary. As your astrologer, I would be like, everything good is worth the wait. Wait until it goes direct before you
Yeah.
start anything new. Or maybe that's just the reconciliation that you need so that you can move forward with each other without. But it's not usually a great inception for a good relationship to start, especially if it's someone that you've already been with.
Mhm.
That's just, I mean, when Venus is retrograde in Leo being that real solar, celebrity sign, that summer, the Barbie summer, was when all those celebrities were just breaking up. I mean, that's kind of, it seems simple, but watch in March and see what happens just within love relationships and themes of love. And especially if you have a natal Venus in Aries, or Venus in Pisces, if you have that retrograde motion kind of hit those points again, then it might be speaking to you a little bit more specifically.
Mm. And you can see all the way down here at the 27th is when Venus finally moves back into Pisces. So we have most of the month with
Mm-hmm.
Venus slow in Aries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that it's a reward. It feels so nice when it's in Pisces, even though it has to meet Saturn. That's something to note.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's like it's already met Saturn once. It's just maybe it wants to go back, say hey
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
work together.
Yeah. Saturn and Venus have this kind of odd couple this about them. Saturn likes to be in Libra, which is her temple. So Saturn and Pisces, when we first got into Saturn and Pisces, there was like the submarine explosion, and there was like the orcas hitting yachts. There was like some like real clear things happening, but it has kind of leveled off. Like, to me, I mean, we've had a lot of flooding, in different places, and I feel like that's maybe talking about a Saturn and Pisces signature. But Saturn it's kind of damped down a little bit in Pisces. When Saturn goes into Aries soon, that
Hmm.
then I'm going to be like paying attention to Saturn a little bit more. It just feels like the Saturn and Pisces is kind of been a little bit of a wet blanket, like, pun
Hmm.
intended. It's like, well, it's not great, but I don't feel like Venus meeting Saturn there is that harsh on her.
Yeah. Yeah. And Venus loves commitment. So,
Yep.
right.
Yeah. And Saturn rules the seventh house in the theme of Mundi. I think about that with the boundaries and commitments for a Saturnine relationship house. So
Yeah, and that'll be a theme to hold on to all month, especially because the sun is in Pisces as we start the month.
Hmm.
And on the second day, the sun in Pisces will square Jupiter in Gemini, which is not, squares are typically tense, but this specific square lends itself to just being larger than life, I think.
Mm, yeah.
And I have the
Yeah.
little trippy owl over here because that's what I think it'll feel like.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's one
Um,
that I was really trying to kind of figure out uh how to even describe that one. Because it's really the only activity that we get from Jupiter aside from the moon hitting it or whatever. It's like Jupiter's only day is this day, but it's squaring the sun. And so for me, the jury's still out. I am really kind of puzzled of like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that
yeah. Yeah, I think it has potential to be magical. And the
one.
only reason I think that is because the next day Mercury moves into Aries.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that day almost is like kind of say bye-bye to that kind of spacey. I mean, there's other times this month that we might get a blip of that, but the sun in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, it's inspiration, it's creativity, can be confusion with Mercury there. And I think the fact that Jupiter's in Mercury's home,
Mm-hmm.
we have to look at where Mercury is. And so I'm pretty glad that when the sun squares Jupiter here, that Mercury
That's
is
true.
still in
Yeah,
Pisces.
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And it's like wakes us up the next day when it moves into Aries and it's
Yeah,
loud.
yeah. Yeah, it seems loud, but what it's going to be loud at, I don't know. I think that's what's puzzling me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when Mercury, when it moves into Aries and I guess lights up Mars. The fact that Mars is in such an emotional sign, and then the way we speak and communicate moves into Aries. I
Mm.
think there's going to be
Hmm.
lots of people not being able to hold their tongues for this moment, you know.
Hmm.
And, you know, we get a retrograde in the middle of the month from Mercury. So this is its shadow. It's already in shadow at this point
Yeah,
because it will also retrograde all the way back to Pisces. So once it moves in Aries, I would at least tiptoe around. Sometimes they're there for a reason. You have to say the thing. Sometimes you
yeah.
have to be loud and you need to be angry, and it's okay. But if you are looking at consequences, maybe, or don't want to, you know, rock the boat too much, this would be a time to be aware that Monday, March 3rd, you know, you could get loud.
I'll just be devil's advocate and be like, if you were waiting to say something, like here you go. You probably won't be able to hold your tongue because like a fresh Mercury and a fiery sign, even though Mars is squaring, the ruler of Aries is squaring it, over there in Cancer. This is the sharpness that Mercury has needed. It's out of Pisces, it's away from Neptune, it's out of detriment. It'll go back there, but the freshness, that sharp tongue, that it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. I could see that being Monday. But if you have something that you're like trying to be delicate about, for sure, uh, maybe wait, or maybe just be very careful with the way that you speak. The moon's in Taurus, so the moon likes to be there. Maybe that'll soften it. But to me, it's like
Yeah.
I look at Mercury going into Aries, even though it's slowing down and it will be retrograde. It's just being funny and sharp and playful and inspiring, and like just even you might get a speeding ticket that day just because you'll have like this like juju from like having like that fresh Mercury in a fire sign just likes to move.
And it's less confused for sure because
100%.
Mercury and Pisces is just kind of spacing out there. So that will
Yeah.
be nice if you are dealing with some lack of clarity. Mercury moving into Aries might help. The rest of that week is pretty chill, but
Yeah.
we have enough to deal with at the very beginning. So I'm
Yeah.
glad. The moon keeps moving, and you'll have the moon being in Cancer on the 7th will be a moon Mars day.
Hmm.
Or it may be the 8th that it's sometime in the 7th and 8th time frame, which is, that can be a blip of frustration. Or I think with Mars direct, and I do want to talk about that a little because it went direct February 23rd,
Yep.
and I'm looking forward to it being less of of having to dig and having to figure out why we're feeling a certain way, or dealing with the heavy feelings, heavy emotions, and more of a what do I do about it? How do I take care of it
Hmm.
situation when Mars is direct?
Yeah.
So these, moon moments when it's in a cardinal sign on Fridays and Saturdays this month, maybe we'll be emotionally aware of how Mars retrograde has affected us or
Hmm.
reflected us, So I like the fact that it's Friday and we get to go, okay, time to let loose, be careful.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mars moon can, because you can see it in the sky, like, especially in December when it was like the full moon and Mars was right there. Like a lot of people were like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Hey." Um, but I think the retrograde motion of it just made it that much louder. It kind of felt like the same vibe that, it's like the baleful rays of an eclipse. That's kind of how it felt of like, oh man, it's like right there in my face is exactly what's going on right now. And a real tough, like a lot of like mother karma, mother-in-law karma, auntie karma, grandma karma. It's like all this stuff of just like injury to females, and just but the mother child dynamic has just been like really difficult, kind of across the board. And I see when the moon kind of gets closer to Mars, it seems like it just really amplifies it. It's less so now that we're kind of out of that cycle, with the moon being, fuller in Cancer while the sun was in Capricorn. We're kind of moving away from it. But when we get into Aries season, then that cardinal moon is going to then just square it, which just still kind of stirs the pot a little bit more.
Hmm. Every Friday and sometimes Saturday in March.
Mm-hmm.
On the 11th is the Mercury Venus retrograde conjunction. So Mercury's not retrograde yet, but it's
Mm-hmm.
slowing down, and Mercury and Venus meet with Venus in her reevaluation period.
Yeah.
So I find it, again, anthropomorphizing these planets. Venus is moving backwards. Mercury's like, hey, what are you doing? Wait, where are you
Mm-hmm.
going? And then
Yeah.
has to turn around and
Should I
follow.
not go forward?
Yeah. What stopped you in Aries?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So if there are exes coming back, this will be the day you need to text your friend about it.
Mm-hmm.
The day that we are aware that we may be reevaluating something. I know Aries, for instance, is my 10th house, and Venus is already there, and we're recording this February 13th. And I know that that's going to be a theme. And with
Mm-hmm.
Mercury doing that, there will just be a moment where I either need to speak on it, act on it, think about it, plan.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good things to do for Mercury Venus.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I looked yesterday because my birthday is on the 12th of a month. And so on the 12th is when I kind of moved to a new perfected month. And yesterday I moved into an Aries month house, an Aries house month. And I'm in a lunar year, so I'm paying attention to the moon. But then I looked at, I was like, well, what is a sixth house? I don't have any placements in Aries. I am Mars ruled, but what does that mean? And then just to have this, Mercury, Venus, like secret telling the day before I move out of it, it's like I'm looking forward to it. If like maybe that's when I'll understand kind of what the secret is, because Mercury loves to gossip, and so it's like maybe Mercury's getting the tea from Venus, or maybe Venus will promise it when they meet up later. But it's like I look at that as like maybe having insight of what that Aries house is for you, of when those two come together, and because they are kind of taking these similar paths, so their stepping stones are going to be similar. But just personally, I'm like, oh well, I'll find out just the day before I move into a seventh house month. So
And oh yeah, that's Warren's birthday. That is my loving partner's birthday, March 11th. So now
nice.
I know what's in his solar return chart
So you'll get a taste of it all year long.
all year. But the next day is the Sun Saturn conjunction. And I, always feel like these things build. So you'll probably be feeling
Mm,
that the 11th as well. Sun Saturn conjunction. It's really easy for me to say we get to the heart of something we need to be working on, or
mhm,
need to be structuring, or need to have boundaries about, especially in Pisces. Saturn and Pisces does help with boundaries because Pisces doesn't have any, and it's really hard for Saturn to even make any. But when the Sun and Saturn conjoin there, I do feel like that's when there is a message. We get a message
Hmm.
about Saturn and
Can we
Pisces.
look at that chart?
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. All right. So I had March 19th up, but I'm going to get this exact Sun conjunct Saturn. All right, here we go. Let me make it Aries rising so we can easily look at that. So there it is at 22
Mm-hmm.
with the
Yeah, so
node and Neptune.
Jupiter's at 13, so it's square by whole sign, but pretty far away. I was wondering
It's
who
Uranus
was,
that stands out to me.
yeah.
I find that sextile pretty intriguing
Mm-hmm.
because Saturn, I still feel like Saturn and Uranus are square. That's how long they were square for me. They felt so
Yeah,
long. And a
yeah.
Saturn Uranus square was really uncomfortable. Uranus wants to break chains and Saturn wants to bind things.
Mm-hmm.
So they were, back and forth for a while, but we're finally here. We're finally at the sextile where
And
they're,
yeah, that's curious.
mhm. And I look forward to how they might work together because they're so antithetical to each other.
Hmm.
But Saturn in Pisces is already, it's almost like had one drink too many and is ready to try out what
Hmm.
Uranus wants to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's contra indicia between Venus and that conjunction as well. So there's this
Mm,
secret kind of opposition between over the Aries Pisces houses, but it's over by about 40 minutes. Is that right? Not even that.
mhm,
So it's within contra indicia. So I would say that there's some sort of Venus is involved just in that secretive way, and Mercury a little bit, but Venus a lot more tighter. I like the moon is just over into Virgo to kind of witness it by whole sign.
mhm.
But yeah, that Uranus, I mean, we're not going to have Uranus and Taurus for too much longer. It's been long enough, as to be fair. But yeah, that sextile is curious. I was just looking to see what degree Jupiter would be at that point, since it's ruling all of the stuff over there in Pisces.
Yeah, I think with the fact that Venus, I'm glad you pointed out that Venus is contra Antitia because it rules Taurus where Uranus is.
Hmm.
And so to have Uranus shaking things up in such a fixed sign, Taurus is about what makes us comfortable and about our values, and Uranus is like, hey, let's change this,
Hmm.
or revolutionize it or innovate it. Finally, Saturn comes into Pisces and it's like, I can imagine that. I can imagine
Hmm.
that. The Venus retrograde it's almost like, okay, now I have to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah.
It feels like. So yeah, that's a good point here.
And honestly, I just I like seeing that Mars's color is not red anymore. It just
Gaze your eyes upon the
yeah.
freshly direct Mars.
Still in Cancer, but
uh,
it's at least not glaring red like the planet looks like to us down here.
yeah.
Our mere mortals scared of the red planet. Yeah.
Oh, if only we could see Uranus. I bet that would be scary.
Hey, oh.
If only.
If only.
Okay, so that takes care of the Sun Saturn conjunction, which I do
Sets
feel
us
like
up. Sets us up for the eclipse.
I know, right? So the eclipse is March 14th. This is really these two eclipses are the big stories, I think. And everything in this month either leads up to it or is a part of the story,
Mhm.
except for maybe Jupiter. I mean, Jupiter's just kind of
Yeah.
chilling.
Yeah.
That's good because it had to endure that square from Saturn for a while.
Hmm.
And will one more time. The full moon lunar eclipse, it's a south node eclipse, and it's all knotted up.
Hmm.
All knotted up. That's
Is
how I
this the
feel
first
about this.
one? This is the first one we had in Virgo?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's go to the chart because this is worth looking at. So there it is, 23 degrees. And still, I mean, even tighter
Saturn's
to
really
Uranus.
close. Yeah.
Huh?
Saturn's still pretty close too.
Yeah, Saturn's still pretty close. Uranus is still hanging out there. Everything's just so Venus and Mercury are slow, Mars is slow.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like a big pause in some way, except for the involvement of Uranus, except for that.
Yeah, because it's like what, 8 minutes, 6 minutes away at that point from the
Mhm.
sextile to the sun. I mean, it's still pretty close.
Mhm. And any Uranian themes that have come up, I'm going to go ahead and say that these will probably be either loud or coming into view, especially with regards to the fact that it's a lunar eclipse south node. If you've been trying to change or innovate something wherever
Mm.
Taurus is for you, this I think will help maybe get rid of some things that have been holding us back from that.
Hmm.
That's how I'm interpreting it because I
Yeah.
know that Virgo is perfectionist, it's detail oriented, it's ruled by Mercury. And, it's like, how do I let go of that? How do I let, and that's why it feels like a big knot. Sometimes you tie yourself up into knots about something,
Mm.
whether it be, your own health or your job and I think
Hmm.
this is really encouraging us to kind of untie that knot. I mean, it's not worth the worry.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much expectation and kind of intellectualized responsibility that's wrapped up with Virgo moon. There's like wanting to like get things to what you think is the perfect amount or what you think is appropriate or acceptable. At the same time, my experience with the moon and Virgo is like, uh, I think of the three cards that are in tarot that are Virgo, the three decans of Virgo, excuse me, it's the 8, 9, and 10 of coins of pentacles. And they're so like straight up like practical magic cards. Like they're so magical. And Virgo moon has kind of that secret connection to magic, to medicine making, and to altar work, and to just making tangible, making talismans, making magical artifacts. Like Virgo moon just has like a particular talent for it. And so you think of just anxieties, and you think of an over intellectualized mercurial moon or a perfectionist moon of Virgo that exists, but also there's this other end of it of just experiencing the kind of the magical capacity. I think that Virgo moon kind of is underrated as being a really purely magical placement. And so having that connection, the trine from Uranus there, is maybe breaking out of the expectations that a Virgo moon can feel and have the pent up, bound up anxieties with, breaking out of that to then discover the magic that is kind of underwriting so much of that too, if that makes sense. It's like there's a duality. Virgo is double bodied. It's a double bodied sign. So it's not just a singular fixed idea of what it is. There's a duplicitousness. There's a dual nature. And to me, like the undercurrent of Virgo is this magical capacity, on top of kind of the responsible, maybe anal retentive, obsessive, perfectionist trope that we have, that we spend plenty of time talking about with Virgos. So
Yeah, and I was looking at the Sabian symbol, and you're gonna love it. It's Mary and her little lamb is the Sabian symbol. And the explanation they give is kind of to be like little children and be innocent. And I mean, children generally, I mean, I know children can worry, but that's not a place that they come from is
yeah,
worry.
yeah,
And unless you maybe are a little kid Virgo, maybe you do.
yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like just it feels like shedding. There needs to be
Mm.
shed, and the
Mhm.
South Node always does, but especially in Virgo.
Mhm.
And being fixed Earth, I think of dust, and I mean mutable Earth. I think of dust, and I think of sand, and I think of
Mm.
how the sand can get in those little places and aggravate you, and how dust can almost be a nuisance without even knowing it, allergies and things like that.
Mhm.
And so this is like it's definitely time to clean up, get the sand out of the cracks, and just shed it, shed the things that are, bothering you, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, there's such a childlikeness about Virgo. There's the idea of the puer or the forever child. To me, that is 100% Virgo. It's kind of Peter Pan-ish. Like Peter Pan is that trickster, but he invites people to go into kind of the magical world where you're like always young and always, have no responsibilities. You don't have worry, you don't have anxiety. I thought today, because I have Virgo stellium, I was like, I just sometimes think in like memes. It's just my problem, my own burden to bear. But I was like, are you really a Virgo stellium if you don't wipe your refrigerator top all the way to the corner and over? Like you don't just do like a loose one. No one's gonna look, but if you didn't get all the way to the corner and over, it's just gonna bug the shit out of you that you did not do that. And like that is like the anxiety of it. It's like it does not matter except that I can't not do it. It's just this. It's that's the duplicitous nature of double-bodiedness. It's like for Virgo, it's in that tangible, wiping the dust in the sand and making sure you get that little grit. But if that grit stays, then that grit could also aggregate a pearl around it, and maybe you're
Yeah.
thankful that the grit was there.
And just to throw a Uranian aspect into this, because you just made me think of a story. I have I have Mars in Virgo, just like Krista. And I used to clean houses. And speaking of top of the fridge, I want to be a good cleaning person, right? So I was cleaning the top of the fridge and I found some illicit drugs up there.
A great place for him.
Oh, it's a great place for anyone but a Virgo, who has any Virgo placements. And that's
Yeah.
how Uranus is going to come in at this eclipse. It feels like
Yeah.
you may be surprised if you are wiping the top of the fridge what you
You're like,
find.
oh, I found someone
Um,
else's stash here. Okay.
oh my gosh, it was so funny. It's the kind that you would put on a mirror. And I was just like, oh, oh, oh no. Like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, just seeing myself in the mirror was just enough for me. Um, I don't
Like
know why
if
I
I
would.
clean it, then they'll know I was here.
Yeah, I totally, but I lifted it up and cleaned under it, just put it back down. Like, ugh.
Just like
Oh
like
man.
scrape it into a smiley face just to like screw with them next time.
Friendly Virgo stop by. That's a very eclipse kind of thing, though. I mean, I should go look back because it would have been probably around the last Virgo eclipses, and I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
Because that's when I had the cleaning business. And speaking of that, I think by the end of those eclipses, I quit. And
Mm.
I think it's a very apropos way of looking at Virgo as well, because Virgo is your work. It can be your daily work. And like you said, the way you have rituals and your habits. And so the South Node there, I love someone used to describe it. I don't remember. We were in just like a talking group. So this isn't someone I can like give credit for it, but like it kicks up dust. The South Node does karmic dust. Like you're sweeping it out. But once you're doing that, sweeping can just kick it back up and you get almost re-involved in it, is
Mm-hmm.
a way to look at
Yep.
the South Node.
Yeah.
So this is something, to think about wherever Virgo is for you, especially if you're a mutable sign at all or have strong mutable placements, is, you know, are you getting caught back up in some of this and what are the lessons here?
Mm-hmm. Because the evaluation piece of Virgo is, it's worthy. It's mercurial, and so it's able to evaluate things, and maybe this is the case of like having the moon in Virgo helps us kind of be in the moment of the circumstances, but still look at it in a mercurial way. Eclipses, they can be significant beginnings and endings of things. So I I listened to this little blip of a lecture talking about the area of learning, and like when you're frustrated, like that feeling of frustration is actually you learning.
Mhm.
And so like if the south node or the north node kicks up or disrupts or excavates any sort of thing that you're really frustrated about, the frustration itself is a hard place to be in. But it's a sign to yourself that you're learning something. And if you can stick with that frustration and really dig deeper, and sometimes digging deeper means that you need to compartmentalize or disassociate in a way of just looking at intellectually, and not looking at it emotionally. Because I think Virgo moon has the capacity to kind of compartmentalize emotions outside of the circumstances, and maybe that's what's needed. Is like, okay, in order to stop this pattern, because eclipses kind of show us patterns, all of astrology does, but eclipses are real easy ones to grasp. This pattern I want to stop. I'm tired of it. It feels a little bit like, instead of premeditated murder, I think Nick Dagan Best says like the north node's like premeditated murder, and south node is like, it's accidental homicide. It's like you didn't mean to do it. It's kind of like it was kind of out of your control, or you were just put in circumstances. So it's like if you're in the circumstance of that, use that compartmentalization and the intellectualness of a Virgo moon, that eclipse there, to stop a pattern that you decide is taking up too much emotional space or too much bandwidth, or regardless. I look at it as this is the first one we have. So what kind of new pattern can we set? Because it being that south node, it's like you can get caught up in it. You can get the dust on your boots and it's not yours to deal with, but maybe it is. And being frustrated with that, you can kind of find your way out of it so that you can just, make the most of your time. Making the most of your time is such a Virgo moon thing. It's like to have your list, stick to it so that you have flexibility and freedom to do the things that you care about more. Virgos are great at compartmentalizing. Every Virgo placement I know has a penchant for lists to some degree. Having the list, having everything put into an order, it's a comfort. It's like combing your brain is to be able to like put it in some sort of a list. So
Yeah, and this curveball here, you'll be glad you have a list if Uranus is involved. I
yeah,
think
you'll be looking over, and Uranus is like using your list to like, smoke one. It's kind of like, yeah, that list
it's
was
so
very
true.
handy.
And yeah, I think it is something to keep in mind because eclipses are already fated events. And then
Hmm.
if you throw in Uranus, which is the great curveball,
Yeah.
then you're going to maybe be dealing with something you didn't expect or didn't know or didn't realize. This is the quintessential flat tire or whatever
Hmm.
the case may be. And what's so perfect is this happens there, and it may be epiphany. I don't want to like write that into
Hmm.
existence that it's something. Uranus is a lot of times, at least personally, related to epiphanies for me. But if you look at the very next day when Mercury goes retrograde, it's almost like the eclipse rattled Mercury. The eclipse is in Mercury's home,
Hmm.
and it's like, okay, did you know this? And then Mercury's like, no, I didn't. I need to go. I need to turn around.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. So then you have both Mercury and Venus just traveling retrograde together. So that next day to me also seems pretty big considering the eclipse happened in Mercury's home.
Yeah. The Ides just mean middle, but the Ides of March.
Oh yeah, these are Iden all the way. Um, that there is a slight sextile here, but it's just not close enough for me to call a sextile.
Hmm.
Um, I would, with the moon in Libra the next day though, and Venus being retrograde, I would just expect the maybe wonkiness to continue in
Mm-hmm.
through that weekend. And yeah, I think that's the best way to say it. I don't want to say too much about, be aware, be afraid, but
I mean, you can be afraid if you want. It's like at this point,
I
it's
know.
we've got some other pretty heavy hitter transits coming up, end of the month and then into next month, and into the summer.
Yeah, and I can't help but think of with Uranus and Taurus, June 2023 was the Venus retrograde in Leo, and that's kind of
Mhm.
you, or June through September. And you were mentioning that because I keep thinking about Venus being retrograde, and I keep thinking about these eclipses. And these eclipses, uh, I think a good one to give you an example, if you think back to 2017, not the same sign. Actually, the next signs are going to be the same signs, but the Leo Great American Eclipse in August of 2017 is when that one was.
Yeah. Hmm.
We just had a full moon in Leo in February, and that kind of brought up some similar stuff to it. But I was looking at that year specifically, and that's also the year Venus went retrograde in Aries last.
Hmm.
And I didn't
Huh.
realize that until I was looking at the full moon because it was kind of hitting some of those points that this full moon hit. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's to me, it seems like 2017 would be a good thing to think about as we get into this Venus retrograde because there are eclipses. I don't know, just
Hmm.
something I wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to just reflect back on those when these transits return and see, how that story has unfolded, either the Venus story or the House of Aries, or um, having that eclipse there. That was one that I witnessed in person, and
Mhm.
just thinking about that time of my life then, and like so much that has happened for good, since, and hopefully all the lessons that I needed to learn, I have learned, so I don't have to repeat them. but
Right.
but sometimes eclipses kind of really bring that up. I'm often surprised at a return of a story, and it's like, just look at the chart. Okay, what was going on? When's the last time this was happening? And if you're using astrology for that reason, I think that you might be kind of giving yourself a little life hack to not repeat those stories, because if you're looking at it through that astrological lens of like, this is repeating and I don't want to make the same choices, I want to
Mhm.
do something different, I want to choose differently. The eclipse moments are those crossroad moments where you're kind of invited to, with Uranus there, it's like definitely kind of maybe a sparkly loud and invitation, but yeah, the fire is starting to me after the eclipse is when it's like the fire starts to really kind of get brighter for the
Mhm.
for the month, and then just kind of portending for the summer, which this summer is kind of a, a I think it was maybe Chris Brennan, someone was talking about it being, it's not like a preview, it's like the pilot episode of the
Uh,
season that's going to come out next year. And that's kind of like the eclipse is like that moment for me where it really then starts to shift, um,
yeah,
to shift
I would
back.
agree. I would agree with you completely. And just because I was looking it up, it was March 2017 through April, and there was also a Mercury retrograde that went into Aries. So yeah, I would look at March through May of 2017 if you are looking at the last time it did this for you. That's when I
Mm,
started my practice too, and it's
mm,
my 10th house. So
yeah.
those themes come back up. They really do. And the 15th Mercury stations retrograde, we can expect all the normal Mercury retrograde stuff, maybe with a twist because it's in the middle of eclipses. It's in Aries with Mars and Cancer. It's co-present to Venus retrograde. So I think it's just going to be probably mind overwhelm, but we
Mm,
rethink, we're rethinking, reevaluating. We already redid some stuff with Mars,
mm-hmm.
so it's just, yeah, I think you're right. It does start to the fire does start to grow, especially like this day after.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I was looking to see, so Uranus went into Taurus the first time in May 15th of
2018.
2018. I was wondering if it was 2017, but it's 2018. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's again right before the shift, and that's where
Mhm.
it's same. We're right before another Uranus shift when this happens. So I
Yeah.
guess it's that 8 year Venus cycle is 8 years, and so you can kind of look at that 8 year cycle in your own life
Hmm.
every time Venus goes retrograde. Well, I guess that's also a Uranus because yeah, I guess 84 years. It probably
Yeah.
divides pretty evenly like that.
Yeah. Well, especially it being a Taurus because Venus rules Taurus, so it feels particularly loud just for this this transit alone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Totally. We get a little break on the 19th with the Sun conjunct Neptune. That'll be pretty nice.
Hmm.
Maybe. I keep thinking with the node there, and with as much as Neptune is inspiration, it's also delusion, it's also confusion,
Mm.
and it has been a malefic to me at certain points this year. So the Sun Neptune conjunction, you could call it a cazimi. I tend to reserve those for Venus and Mercury, though. But it is technically a cazimi with Neptune. And I don't know. It does feel a little bit like a wet blanket. Like that's a day when you maybe go into your meditation and process things. I wouldn't, I mean, maybe inspiration. Maybe that's
Yeah.
the good part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the moon's squaring it. The moon's in, Sag. Jupiter will be in Gemini. Can we look at that chart that day?
I also want to look at, I'm wondering if it's the last Sun Neptune conjunction in
Yeah. In
Pisces.
Pisces.
Let me just look really quick. We'll go back to now. March 19th, March 20th. Okay, no. Well, oh, that's
Because that's
Aries.
Neptune. Yeah. Because yeah.
Oh, it is. It's the very last one.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, y'all.
You're like whispering.
I don't know whether to celebrate or be like, what?
Last
What the hell's gonna happen? I don't know.
one. This is
Um,
that final one.
I don't think I realized that until just now.
You're like, I'm not ready. You're like, it's malefic, but I'm not ready.
I'm not ready. Or maybe I'm scared of it. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
I've got to go look at the Sabian symbol. I bet the Sabian symbol for the 29th degree of Pisces is crazy. So this is something called the anaretic degree,
Hmm.
the 29th degree. And the anaretic degree is known as the degree of crisis. Whether it seems to prove true. The crisis, though, seems to be spiritual in this case or
Mm.
existential. It feels that way right now, and we're
Yeah.
not even
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, if I think of, okay, the sun in Pisces, what is the sun in Pisces like? The sun in Pisces in the last day of Pisces. This is the sun story. So this is its last day in Pisces. Pisces is such a nostalgic sign. It's the final sign before, the spring equinox when the sun is reborn and light really does take over. And so it's like a Jupiterian, hopeful, nostalgic, loving. It's ruled by both benefics sign, but it's in that final degree. To me, it's like Sun at 29 degrees Pisces is just uh, incredibly tapped into emotional intelligence, because there's this moment of like, because at any moment all of this could end. It's like that the philosophical nature of someone that has faced death, or is facing death, and just kind of has you know this Dalai Lama attitude about existence on Earth. It's like there's a freedom to that, because you both love and have nostalgia and memory for all of these things, but you know that it's probably like what winter is coming. It's like it's going to go away. But then Neptune's there, adding to that soup of what the possibilities are. And so as a day of just meditation, as a day of creative play, as a day of just honoring what has, it's like the New Year's Eve for the zodiac. And so like having that Neptune influence there, I am I'm not sure about Neptune. I have difficulty understanding Neptune, which to me is just kind of funny. It seems like that's
Yeah.
Neptune's
It's like
job.
supposed to be that way or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. But I really want to figure it out. But I can't. And so to me, it's like Neptune just kind of has to be experienced. And Neptune transits are not always easy. They can be easy, they can be luxurious, they can
They
be
can be
like really
magical.
beautiful, silky, mineral salt bath. But they can be also really harsh. And if I think of like just Neptune at that last degree, it's like making, making philosophical choices from an existential crisis with the sun's amplification there. How do you want to channel that energy? And creative work, being kind of lost in nostalgia, even just like looking through scrapbooks, looking at old pictures, kind of telling stories. Yes, it's a degree of crisis, but it's like maybe the crisis is I need to remember these things before I forget them, because your memory is only a memory of a memory of a memory of a memory. And so holding on to as many memories and getting lost in that memory, and there's like a sense of like, if we want things to last longer, then we have to honor them. And
Mm.
the storytelling about the good stories and the good things feels important for this moment. The North Node's there too. I don't know. It's a Wednesday. It's a Mercury day, so it's like, maybe just
It's a
write.
hump day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a an activity of just write your own biography. Like there's all these different ways you can do it, but it's really difficult to do. It's
Oh
really
yeah.
difficult to think back and write. But maybe this is a day to like think back and like, okay, I'm 44. How much of my life can I remember? And maybe nostalgia isn't your jam, but it's a really difficult exercise just for the brain and the memory. And how many good stories do you remember? How many bad stories do you remember? But archive it, have that document for yourself. Because if this is the last time Neptune's going to be in that benefic ruled Pisces with the sun. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think it went into Pisces in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. I
Mm.
need to look at that. But I was reading the Sabian symbol and you are really speaking to it. I love it when you do that because it's like they're written. But it is a majestic rock formation resembling a face is idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness and as he grows up begins to look like it.
Aw.
I know. Visualization,
Mm.
just whether it be nostalgic, whether it be maybe you're dreaming something, but I do think that could be a really powerful thing to do because the world happens around you anyway. So
Yeah, like if you did some reflection back on what you were. I've seen this trend on Instagram of like, I met my younger self for coffee and she looked like this and I was telling her this, and it was like having a conversation with like your younger self, whatever age. And it was a really beautiful exercise of like how you remember yourself, but you're thankful for that girl or that boy because they had to be that way for you to be this way. So
mhm,
maybe the reflection can happen. So then you can then turn around, because Pisces is double bodied as well, and be like, what do I want the future memories to be?
mhm,
What are my big dreams? Jupiter is the big umbrella from which we all find shade in a hot sun. Like that, it's like the big ideas. Do you have big ideas? Like if you don't have big ideas, like start thinking of them this day, because there might be some really beautiful insights that come. I guess I'm looking forward to it. Um, in a way, I feel like maybe you should just take the day off
yeah,
and just kind of really lean into it.
yeah. I mean, especially it being right there before the equinox, and
Hmm.
I love that the moon's in Sag. It's just all
Hmm.
very Jupiterian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's sextile Pluto. That's a nice little touch for that moment.
Yeah, and I think this is also a really psychic transit. I mean, if you get into that kind of thing, this is one where, like for instance, today I went in my closet to look for what to wear, and I swear that I picked almost a shirt that looks just like yours.
Oh, really?
And I thought, well, the black polka dots might look weird against
Hmm.
my background. So I
Hmm.
opted against it. When you came on camera, I was like, of course, of course. Like we would
Yeah,
just almost dress alike. That's a Sun Neptune thing for me.
yeah.
That's that the telepathy tapes, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing is very Neptunian because it's those messages you get. So being
Mm-hmm.
open to them and taking the day off and visualizing and going into your history or whatever you might do, it can be good. I think I'm gonna have to honor that it's the last Sun Neptune conjunction probably
Yeah.
that day.
Yeah, it's curious that yesterday I dreamt of this very specific fabric, but it was sheer white with white polka dots. And I was like, I know I have a shirt like that. And so it's like I came in and like found it, and it was like it was big puffy sleeves, you know, it's like this not very comfortable shirt, but it looks amazing. And so, you know, maybe that'll be a good day just to like go to the fabric store, you know, or go buy some craft supplies and just make shit, like make art that day.
People say they're not creative, and I'm like, you have to try, even if it's something you are judging,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
draw, write, do whatever.
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
did see. So you can get, if you have a pasta maker that you probably don't ever use, it's just collecting dust down in your storage unit. You can get a pasta maker, and you can get like the cartons of milk or oat milk that are in those Tetra Packs. You can cut out the pieces and you can carve images in it. And then you can roll ink on it and then use your pasta maker to make a little tiny printing press. There you
I
go.
love that. Yeah, and that's not even, you don't have to be super creative to do that. You just have to do
Yeah.
it.
You just have to do it. It's just fun, you know, it's just process.
Go ahead and look at the next day, because that we're right here at the equinox. Here we are. Now the sun's in Aries, just like that.
Just like that.
Bye bye, Pisces, because yeah, I think the eclipses are going to be the last thing for a bit to be in
Mm-hmm.
Pisces. That's
Yep.
that's a big deal. So, I think Pisces is a beautiful, beautiful sign. That's where my moon is, but I do look forward to the sun moving into Aries because of more
Yeah.
light in
Yep.
general.
Yep.
And this is why the sun likes Aries. It's a fire sign, it's Mars's domain, but that's something to talk about, right? Because Mars is uh, being drenched in Cancer.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the theme of Mundi, Cancer sits on the ascendant, which puts, you know, Aries at the top of the chart. The sun exalts in Aries. The sun is right there at the top of the chart. And so, you know, the tropical zodiac, you know, sun's light begins to take over. It's equal at the equinox, and then a minute later, the sun is rising up. So yeah, I like Sun and Aries. It really is just like a little bit of extra gas in the engine whenever really any planet goes into Aries, but particularly the sun. And yeah.
Yeah, and once it moves into Aries, I mean, I think that's going to be nice for everybody, but really, and maybe I should go back to the calendar, because the sun moves into Aries every year. That's why, who, me?
I know.
Me? Aries is a very self sign. It's about identity, it's about
Yeah.
autonomy, it's about independence. So the sun moving into Aries, those themes come up every year.
Hmm.
But it's the 22nd that has my attention. That's the sun conjunction to Venus retrograde, the Cazimi, the star point. I love star point talk.
Mm-hmm.
Ariel Gutman, she's so great. Check out Ariel stuff on Venus star points, because it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, I want to look at that. I think I want to look at Venus Sun, because I should look at when it did it in 2017, but we don't have the time to do that. But at 2 degrees of Aries, and the thing that stands out to me is that it's, I don't think there are no aspects to this Cazimi.
Yeah. Pluto is a close sextile.
Yeah, it is. I guess that's the only one. Well,
Yeah.
probably that's a heavy hitter to
Yeah.
kind of miss, isn't it? So Pluto in Aquarius, if you heard any of our talk about it when it moved into Aquarius, Pluto is transformation. It can be power, empowerment, disempowerment. In Aquarius, it's basically power to the people. It is, Aquarius is such a bird's eye view sign. So it's innovative, it is revolution, and it's changing up probably some goals as well, because I think Aquarius deals with leadership and goals. This Venus Cazimi, which is already wonderful, because whenever it's conjunct the sun, you imagine it gets a message from the sun. A
Yeah.
message from the king is what a Cazimi means. And sextiles are really flowing. They're very supportive. They're opportunity. That's how I look at sextiles. So we have the opportunity to do something in ourselves based on Pluto's transformation of the world, of the large groups of people we might belong to, of technology. There's so many different things you could say
Mm,
about Pluto and Aquarius, but I do love that sextile. It seems like empowerment, even though Venus is retrograde. It's like maybe reevaluating places that you've made yourself small,
mhm.
and yeah,
Yeah, I've been thinking about, okay, on the front end, I was like, Pluto and Aquarius is like power to the people. I haven't seen that yet. I've seen what causes people to rise up in their
yeah,
own power.
same.
And so to me, it's like maybe you have to have the reason to go and fight, or the reason to go protest or defend, or show up or speak, or speaking the truth about the things that you love feels like the Venus Aries, Sun Aries, Mercury Aries. Because Mercury is just a couple degrees away. Pluto will be stationing in about 5 weeks, so it's slow at this point. It'll station at 3 degrees and some change, so it's not quite retrograde. There's going to be some conversation that Venus and Pluto keep having as Venus goes around, because it's going to take a while for Pluto to go through. I wonder, just in my own perspective of, does Pluto in Aquarius mean the source of power, collective power, power of individuals, and this Kazemi moment, that sextile, that opportunity, that invitation of something to change, maybe it's Aries being that individual, that sign of the individual and the spring baby that it is, but conjunct Venus, of being reminded of, like, this is what we care about, these are the things we love. The sextile is Venus's aspect connected to that Pluto, and maybe looking back on that Pluto and Aquarius of, like, this is what I care about and this is how I'm going to fight for it. And then
Yeah,
it's going to keep happening, because it's going to happen again. When's the next time? So look and see when Venus sextiles Pluto, because it'll probably be,
it's a good point.
because I feel like it'll speak to,
You mean the next time, not this
yeah,
time, right?
yeah.
Maybe
So
May
May,
6th.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it feels like it's an invitation of participation
Mm-hmm.
for sure. To
Yep.
to like you can be involved in some way. Um,
And is Pluto retrograde? Oh, it's
oh yeah,
direct.
let me see. It is retrograde during that second one in May.
Okay, so it goes retrograde on the 4th. So just 2 days before it goes retrograde.
They're like
Yeah.
high-fiving, whatever they did.
Mm-hmm.
It's what
Yeah.
it feels like.
Yeah.
And at this point, Neptune's there. So, I mean, look at those dark blue lines. These are the lines that astrologers have wanted to see and have been looking forward to for a long time. I would say
Mm.
that. And as wonky as things feel, I think, especially in America, but all over the world, probably because of America, there is something to look forward to with these sextiles, I
Mm.
just, and trines, and just, I think it's beautiful with the outer planets because that doesn't always happen with outer planets.
Yeah, the sextile is the first aspect you can make after a conjunction. It's like the first greeting that you have. And so since all of these outer planets are changing signs, Pluto went into Aquarius first. And then we're going to have Neptune, and then, Saturn will go into Aries soon too, but Uranus going into Gemini is going to be a new game for all of us. Pluto in Aquarius is a new game for all of us, and Neptune in Aries is a new game. So all of those, and they all just happen to be sextiles away from each other. The Pluto and Uranus, when Uranus gets into Gemini, will trine, but yeah, it's going to be something new. It's just a game changer, and that sextile is that opportunity to have a new story be told.
Yeah, yeah, I love this Kazemi here. I think that's going to be a pretty good day. I think the next thing after this is, okay, it's the Mercury Kazemi,
Mm-hmm.
which, it's very similar, and I bet, is it going to be at similar degrees? Let's see. Let's see.
And the moon will be in Aquarius too, it looks like, thanks to your handy chart.
What do I say? Oh, the sun.
Sun.
It's at 4 degrees. Oh, and look, the moon's with Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it'd be there.
But it's a
See,
degree away. Yeah, a degree away from that.
it's so
Pluto to the to
crazy.
that Cazimi.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's something there. That's why it's like the Venus and Mercury stories are so similar. They're so
yeah,
similar.
they are. And this sextile being opportunity, now it's our minds that get that opportunity,
Mm.
So our hearts, I would say Venus, kind of is like the heart pull, and then Mercury is the decision pull, and the moon's there, just deciding to, I guess, go into the underworld because maybe that's what happens around this time, And I don't mean that obviously like we're all gonna die. What I mean is we
Well,
all
we are eventually, but
eventually.
I mean, what I see it is like, okay, Venus goes retrograde first. So there's something wrong. There's just like something that's unsettling in my heart. I don't know what it is. Like there's just the vibes are off. I'm going to turn around and go, I feel like I left my stove on. And I know that seems irrational, but I just feel like I left my stove on. You go home and then you don't know what happens, but then you got in a car. Maybe that one little action just saved you from getting into an accident. Like, there's
Burnt
like
toast
that,
theory.
there's that little like, there's just something not right in my heart. I don't know what it is. I'm going to turn around and go back. And then there's the Mercury of like, something is up here. There's something, I had that intuition with Venus retrograde. And now I'm like, those facts don't add up. I'm going to go back and help Venus out because she was onto something, and I'm going to come back with the data, the ammunition, or whatever it is. And Pluto is there, kind of like, what about this? What about this? Like maybe Pluto is there with the excavation that it is, of just like, there's new ways that we can like maybe discover things. But Venus is the brave one. Venus favors the bold. She's the brave one that goes back and of like, something's not right, I'm going to go back. And Mercury's like, just as like backup. And the story that because I was looking to see, so Venus retrogrades at 10 degrees. She's at 10 degrees 50 minutes when she
Hmm.
stations, and Mercury is at 9. Let me look.
Yeah, that sounds
Nine
right.
degree. So they're within a degree of each other in Aries. They station very close. Um, so it just feels related. And then they're
It
connected to
does.
that Pluto over there.
It does, even the fact that the moon is giving cues to Mars at this point, in
Mm.
Aquarius. So, and the one thing that stands out too, and I have this on the calendar when we show it again, is I'm looking, where do I have it? Yeah, the 26th is when Mars squares Chiron. And Chiron it's a dwarf planet, but it's pretty big. I think it's almost as big as Pluto, if not bigger. Um, its myth is about having a wound and trying to heal it or wanting to heal it. Mars square that is, I don't think, going to be super comfortable. It's already happened once.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, let me look at when Mars squared Chiron.
Well, and something
Because
you said, I think maybe it was the last one. It's like when you get bit by a snake, you don't go like
yes,
running after the snake to be like, why'd you bit me? What did I do to make you bite me? You just go and look for the cure.
yep,
Yeah. That's
October
what
13th.
I think of that with the Mars Chiron square of like, don't go after the snake. It's already
Don't go after the
happened.
snake.
Just look for, you're not going to reconcile that. And that's that Mars and Cancer. It's kind of like, you wronged me and I want you to understand that you wronged me. It's like, that isn't always, maybe you might feel justified, but it's not helpful. And that
Mm-mm.
sucks. And it makes you feel life is unfair, but you still have to deal with someone threw a baseball through your window. That sucks. They ran off. You're never going to find them. Just replace the window
Yeah,
and
it'll
hope.
eat you alive.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It festers, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So at this moment, and that's why I was looking, because you have all of that going on with the Aries stuff, looking to Mars, and Mars is getting this kind of tension. It's almost like the last time you're finished sewing up a cut, it's like that last pull, and it,
Mm-hmm.
winces a little bit, but that's what
Mm-hmm.
this moment is.
Yeah.
So there could be a little tenderness in that because
Mm,
of Mars square Chiron, I think.
yeah.
And I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, and where was the eclipse last year? Chiron was close. I'm gonna look back and see what date that was.
The April
Um,
8th one. Yeah, it
so
was
Chiron is
conjunct
at,
it.
yeah, it was at 19. It was at 19 degrees. So still pretty close to now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And then honestly, October 13th was the first Mars square to Chiron. Then February 3rd was the retrograde one. And now we're at March 26th. It's the last one. It's the last one.
Hmm.
But what a beautiful, thing to do to heal something that's, been a wound for you.
Yeah.
And I know I can point to things myself in my personal life. So if you look at where Aries and Cancer are in your chart, you probably will also be able to tune into some things. And that's where the little band-aids come in.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna call Mars in Cancer Uncle Fester.
Uncle Fester. It really is festering.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a great word for it.
Luckily, Venus moves back into Pisces on the 27th. Looking forward to that. And how cool, because it's going to conjoin Neptune right as
Again.
it does it, right? And I think that's if you're going to have maybe a good Neptune moment, that is
Yeah.
probably going to be good. And
Yeah.
I think retrogrades, people just equate that with bad automatically when
Mm-hmm.
it's just not the case. Sometimes a retrograde conjunction can be beautiful and
Mm-hmm.
can show you something you didn't know before, or have you revisiting that story to edit it because you got inspired to put another chapter in the book, or whatever.
I think that it's just the attitude that we have in our modern day of just like that you think by going forward you're going to just improve, and we have this like I must like go forward, build on things, always make progress. We don't tend to value the soft reflection as part of the process of growth.
Mhm.
And, singular growth and even time and history doesn't necessarily mean things improve. We don't, as a society and as an animal, we don't necessarily improve just because we live longer. You know, so much of the improvement, it requires that reflection and that return back. So I think it's probably why people are like, oh, something's retrograde. Like, oh no, like it's going against the order of going forward all the time. No, don't stop at any red lights. Just go, 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 go. It's like, no, the slowing down is necessary. And, some people understand that and appreciate it. But I think it's just telling of our culture. We're like, oh man, it's got to slow down, but
Mhm.
we can take advantage of it. It's like when, if you're stuck in traffic, if you have a good book to read, like, well, you just made time to read a good book, sure, you didn't get to work on time, but you got to read a good book. There's little moments that the pause and the delay and the retrograde. I think just symbolically, retrogrades are kind of forced time to reevaluate what you've already gone over once, and maybe you have a chance to redo or reflect or fix or just heal, and showing that is a valuable thing that helps us
Mhm.
grow in a more sustainable circular way, not just straight up, but like building our communities with a better foundation because we've done it slower as opposed to just putting block on block on block on block on block, like the tower
Mhm.
that will eventually fall down. If we build it more sustainably, we do it slower and it takes time. I don't know. I'm learning
Yeah.
to be way more appreciative of the retrograde, because as a human, as a mom, as a business owner, as a just an individual in my society, it's hard to just keep the grind. The grind grinds you down, and retrogrades are moments of like, no, on that Neptune sun, I'm just gonna take the day off. I won't work,
Mhm.
I won't earn money, and that's actually a good thing that day.
Mhm. Mhm. And I think what you said about healing really fits with these couple of days here,
Mm,
because the Mars square to Chiron, and then Pisces is also a sign of healing. It's more kind of that supernatural idea, though, I think, with Pisces. But to
mm-hmm.
have those two things back to back is really pretty.
Yeah.
And when you have Venus retrograde and you're already, I mean, in Aries, yes, you're doing the work, right? Like you
Yeah.
have no choice. So almost it's like, yeah, definitely enjoy this moment. There may be something that comes up, but
Hmm.
it's for your healing. It's for your own good. It's
Yeah.
exactly. I totally agree with you. So yeah, no, it's not a four letter word, retrograde, even though we
It's
say
like
retro.
RX. I like that
Exactly.
the RX is like that symbol of medicine too,
It is
you know.
exactly. You know. Uh, okay, we're here. We're at the solar eclipse that we can't see, and it's partial. And this is a good point because
Mm-hmm.
I want to draw attention to the fact that there is the North Node. That's actually the retrograde. I mean, sorry, this eclipse maker is the node. That's where the shadow falls.
Mm-hmm.
So just because the new moon is in Aries doesn't mean it doesn't have Pisces things to go along with it, you know?
Right.
So this one, 9 degrees, and this is a part of our nine
Mm-hmm.
degree series. It's like the sun launched a series or the sun and the
Yeah.
moon. They're like, we're going to release this 9 degree series.
Yeah.
It's like 6 months of exact 9 degree
Yeah. This
moons.
is
And
the
this
last
is,
one.
yeah, is it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Taurus, I think is at 10 and some change,
go
but
out
this
with a
is,
bang.
yeah, which Aries loves to come in with a bang and out with a bang.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And it will. I mean, Mercury's there. Mercury's not quite ready to go into Pisces at this solar eclipse.
Mm,
Mars and Chiron both moved to the 22nd degree at the same time. I thought it was funny too.
mm,
Like they're still holding that square. But this, the solar eclipse not having any, I mean, I guess it's not even sextile Pluto now. I mean, that's pretty far away.
yeah.
But yeah, there's no aspects to the solar eclipse at all.
Yeah. It's on its own. Standing proud like Aries does.
Yeah. I think this is really, I mean, I know it's a new moon, and this kind of trips me up because new moons are seed planting times and the beginning, right? But this feels like the end of the Aries
Mm-hmm.
eclipses, even though it's a new moon. This feels like the final parting. Um, don't forget to do this. If you're gonna, take the trash out, make sure you tie it. That's kind of
Mm.
like how it feels. Or if you're gonna write a book, make sure that you pick someone good to write the forward. It's just like this parting whisper.
I like that. Yeah. And just, as the moon approaches that, so when it gets at the last, 4 degrees of Pisces and into Aries, it'll be that balsamic phase, which is that composted, you know, version of the moon. It's like the dying end. Even when it's in
Mhm.
Aries at 0 degrees, before it hits that 9, it'll be balsamic, and it's that going into the earth and disintegrating and becoming, fertilization for the next seed. It's like maybe part of that process is that letting go, that decomposition, that wrapping things up and telling the old story. And like from the old story, I love it. I always have jack-o'-lanterns. I'm a huge pumpkin fan. I just love the pumpkin. It's so much fun. And it just delights me. It's like one of my top 10 favorite things in life. And I just always have pumpkins. I just put them around my yard. The squirrels and the deer and the birds eat them. One of my favorite things though is that I'll have random surprise pumpkins because I've let them decompose in the yard, and the animals kind of strew them all over the place. So I'll have these, like, a curcubit leaf is very particular, and so I'll just see it like in poison ivy. It'll just be like this wild pumpkin that's growing, and to me that's like letting something just in, letting a story end. You don't know how else it's going to pop up in just a new way. And to me, that's that new moons are hard. They're dark. We can't see them. They're hard to visualize. So it is that time to just be internal and be quiet and be dark. But I think that you've touched something about there's an ending story here, and there's a new story also happening simultaneously. And that the garden metaphor of the compost pile, the plants have to kind of disintegrate down in order for new seeds. It can still be a part of that dead pumpkin, but it's going to grow in a new way. And maybe that pumpkin will like make your neighbor laugh because it looks funny, or maybe you'll take it to the state fair, or maybe you'll make a meal with it in Thanksgiving that inspires a conversation where you meet a friend. Like, who knows where that little seed will end up, or what it's going to be connected with, but it's coming from like an older time, an older story, kind of the just a different, it's like it's a potential for living a completely new life because it's out of the eclipse story at that point. It's like that final one, and then it's got another 9 years before it has to revisit it, right?
Yeah, yeah, I agree completely. And I think a part of the news story is going to be the Pisces stuff, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
which that draws my attention. The fact that Venus is at, and let me go back to the exact eclipse.
Oh,
Okay,
right.
so
Yeah.
Venus is at 28, and you have successive here, Saturn 24, North Node 27, Venus 28, Neptune 29. That's the news story. So it's almost like looking at the Aries stuff, and yeah, it's like, did I plan it well enough? Is there anything else I need to do before I go focus on this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do think there's not much that feels super like heavy about it to me. Maybe the fact that Mars is square Chiron is probably the thing that draws my attention as far as heaviness or hurt or anything
Mm.
like that. This feels like, I don't know, like what's going to happen, because Pisces is it's just a kitchen sink. It's the kitchen sink. I can't even say
Mm-hmm.
it right, but it is.
Neptune's there, just
Yeah.
like shoving clouds in your mouth, trying to say.
Yeah. It's like you could really come up, anything would fit under the Pisces umbrella because it's the last sign. It
Mm-hmm.
is kind of an amalgamation of everything else in the zodiac. So there's no boundaries here.
Mm.
Aries is very particular. Aries has very particular things that it
Mm-hmm.
associates with itself. It's almost like it
Yeah.
decided this is
Yeah.
what I want to be in astrology. Um,
This
so
is
when
a
it
side
comes,
note, but I feel
yeah,
like the cleanliness that Virgo gets attributed to, I know so many Aries that are like uber clean and just like deciding to, it's like stripped down. Like, I see Aries placements as, not all of them, because you can't brush any of them with big broad strokes, but I've noticed that. I was like, Aries sometimes are like the ones that deep clean their kitchen every night before they go to bed. Like a
yeah,
little obsessive. We think Virgo, but Aries has that.
yeah.
When you said that, I was like, man, I've been wanting to say that out loud, and I just haven't had the chance to.
Perfect
Yeah.
timing. And I think if you could brush anything with a large stroke, it would be Pisces. See, so it's like
Yeah.
that's the difference,
Yeah.
in these two signs, and why this feels like such a big moment. It really does. I think having a pileup of planets anyway,
Mm.
especially when you have a mixture of, I mean, I guess Saturn's not even an outer planet, but it is further out. Saturn, Venus, Neptune is an outer planet, and then back to Mercury and the sun and the moon and Aries. It just feels like a
Mm.
lot's going on.
Hmm.
But nothing's really happening yet, you know?
Yeah, and the fact, I mean, like this eclipse series has been happening in Aries Libra for a while. This is the final one, so I don't feel like it'll be like like something completely new. It's an out of sign eclipse, because the nodes there in Pisces. I don't feel like the Aries themes or the Aries house might be the surprising bit. It might be the Pisces house that is the surprising bit.
Yeah.
That's related to the Aries story, but this is the final one. It's like you probably would know by now what this is about, but now let's add the influence of the Pisces pile up with the node there. I think you're right. I think it's going to tie that in, but maybe the surprise will come from Pisces and not Aries.
Yeah, and what's tying it all together really is Mars, because Mars rules the Aries stuff and it's trine the Pisces stuff. So, really, I think that's probably the more important thing to look at, is what Mars and maybe Saturn are doing.
Mm.
Um, and of course Venus, but Mars and Saturn here are just like, hey, what's up? We gotta do something about this, you know?
Hmm.
So I agree with you. And then, I think if I were to give I guess, broken down, like let's break it down. This solar eclipse is about putting on your hat, making sure your hair looks good before you go outside and do something, because
Yeah.
that's what it really feels like. Or it is like buttoning something up to get ready for something new,
Mm.
especially with regards to independence, identity, autonomy,
Hmm.
all of the airy stuff, motivation. And maybe there is motivation here. I do like that Mars is trying Saturn. I feel like that's going to give us the gumption.
Mm.
So there's going to be gumption where Pisces doesn't usually have gumption. There is no gumption in Pisces,
Yeah, it
except
needs to
for
be kind of
the,
like pushed. I like the Mars there, but we had Mars trying Saturn, and that was like some of those uh airplane crashes were happening
Mhm.
right around there too, so it's
Yeah.
not, it's not just like motivating. Sometimes it's uh a little difficult having the malefics there. And then the next
Mhm.
day is when Neptune moves into Aries too. So it's like that ingress is like
Yeah,
what
let's
we're
look at
waiting
that.
for.
First, I'm gonna look at the calendar because
Yeah.
just to show you we're at the end. Yay.
Mhm.
But I put the people on the world here because, and we discussed a little bit about this before we started, and that is boundaries,
Mm.
wars, not to scare
Yeah.
anybody.
Speak a little
There's,
bit about that because that was before we started recording. Like you did some research about this ingress in the
yes.
past.
So Neptune moving into Aries on the 30th, the last time it did it was 1891 and 1697, if I'm not totally wrong. Um, I wanted to pull that up. I had some notes on it. I think the biggest thing that I took away from it was there were people that came into power, people who left power. There
Mhm.
were countries that went to war, countries who finished wars.
Mhm.
Specifically, the Civil War started the day before, and it really started before that, but the first shots were fired April 12th,
61.
1861. I get the dates start to move around in my head. And then in 1697, if I'm saying those dates right, uh, we had the end of the 9 Years' War, which was France, England. I mean, it was just all of Europe, pretty much.
Mhm.
The Holy Roman Empire, I think, was involved in that. And it was the end of that. We had a king die and a king ascend to power. And then one of the things that I mean, yes, the wars, yes, the the kings and the queens, but for me, it was the slavery part that really stood out because the first time Neptune went into Aries in the 1600s, um, slave trade took off. It was
Mhm.
like a big deal. And then come back around the next time, and it ends slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation was signed right there during Neptune and Aries because of the war. So there's a lot of standing up for your rights. It's very almost like Joan of Arc. It's very
Mm.
um, pushing boundaries. Lots of boundaries changed. There were, I think, lands ceded to other countries and things of that nature going on. And one weird thing was the piracy,
Mhm.
because that was just an interesting part. There was obviously lots of pirates in the 1600s, and they were the actual our
Yeah.
pirates. But in the 1800s, there was the Union blockade, and
Mhm.
that happened on water. And so all of those themes, history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme.
Mhm.
We're dealing with them already. We're dealing with the idea of, go ahead.
Well, when you said 9 years, I was like nodes, nodes, nodes. And
Yeah,
so in the middle of the 9 years war, we had the nodes in Pisces and Virgo.
there you go.
Yeah.
And I mean, that would put Neptune conjunct the
Hmm.
node at some point there in
Yeah.
Pisces. And so, yeah, and let me give you the actual date because I had this pulled up.
Okay. Yeah, you
It
hear these
is,
numbers and you're like, you immediately disassociate like 8 for Venus,
mhm,
27. Saturn, 9, 18 for the nodes. So it was,
Yeah. So April 12th, 1861 was when the first shots were fired. And Neptune moved into Aries April 13th, which I found shocking.
yeah. So the 1861, the nodes were in Cancer Capricorn. The 1691, kind of in the middle of that 9 years war, the nodes were in
Should probably just
Pisces,
show it.
Virgo.
There you go. And then yeah, so I did have the dates right, 1697. I was like, oh gosh, there's so many dates.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, all that being said, there's a 166-year orbit, I'm pretty sure, is the orbit of Neptune. And every 166 years, I could go back, and I'm betting that would have been the Martin Luther.
Yeah, the Protestant Revolution, Lutherans.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, people standing up for their Neptune beliefs. Neptune is about spiritual beliefs. It's almost about beliefs that take you over. It's that almost, you could say cults. Cults are very much associated with Neptune, but
Mm-hmm.
when you feel a spiritual pull to do something deep down, you don't even know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
That's a Neptune thing. And I think in all of these instances, there was that going on.
Yeah, the theme that came up when we were talking earlier was like the bonds and the bondage and like what the limitation is. And something that I did at the end of the year was I read a year ahead for a lot of people through tarot. And the devil card came up a lot. Devil card came up for February and for August for a lot of people. Like an exorbitant amount of my clients had it for that. And so I've been just spending a lot of time thinking about what is the devil, and particularly about the chains or the bonds that we feel bound to on this earth, bound to our desires, bound to responsibilities, bound to just this incarnate existence, but then the bondage that we put on other people,
Mhm.
and just the themes of being bound by nationality or by borders, or by being bound from debt that you have to a creditor, or and that sense of oppression and that sense of weightiness. And for Neptune to go into Aries, which is like this, like, fuck it all, just be, go forward and be free, and just really kind of burst out of the Neptunian waters of Pisces and just be, maybe still not understand what the limitations and the bounds are, but be a little bit more proactive to remove them. uh, and we're looking at war. We're looking at, the American Civil War, and we're looking at, the 9 years war, and we're looking at, other moments where there was this attempt to constrict and the reaction to defy that. And I think that we're in this political climate too, mostly because, the climate change and the crazy weather that is displacing people, and the socio-political environment that is, destroying people, and genocide, and we have all of this stuff where the movement and migration of humans for political or environmental reasons or financial reasons is definitely shifting. Like the waves of people are shifting around the globe, trying to find a safer place. And like, if I think of, someone coming from Central America coming up to North America, they're not doing it because they want to leave their homeland. They're doing it out of desperation. They're doing it because they feel like there's no other option. They're being bound by, drug gangs that are threatening their children to join them, or they're doing it because, their farm has been logged and now they can't grow anything because all of the topsoil is away, and their farm is, worthless. Or they're doing it because they just cannot find work and they need to be able to support their family and there's all these reasons why a refugee would be forced to leave a place, but you're doing it with purpose. And to me, Neptune into Aries kind of has a bit of that purpose. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not, you're not happy to be there, but you definitely have that fire, that drive to then, just be defending yourself. I mean, Mars is still in Cancer at this point, which informs that ingress chart tremendously, even if it's, just by a whole sign square, but it's informing all of that in Aries. And fighting for reasons. I feel like maybe that's what this Mars retrograde is helping us reconcile, is defining what are the reasons, why do we fight for the things that we fight for. And Neptune going into Aries, and like it makes me like, as a mom, like it makes me like or like I have preemptive grief for, I feel like, the body count that's going to come from it, because I feel like it's going to be really heavy shit worldwide. I feel like it's going to be very heavy, but hopefully the value or the choice or the reason why we fight is for the what we love, what we defend. That Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde from Aries into Pisces, but then Mars, Uncle Fester down there, Mars in Cancer, is kind of like just really informing us, of giving us the reasons of what we're going to do. But
Yeah.
I know people are excited about Neptune and Aries, but and I am too, because it's like, well, I've never experienced that before. But I am like, I'm worried about just the human cost that will come from that fiery placement. To be,
I am
I
too.
am.
And with the themes of territorial changes and yeah, slavery and human rights and freedom being at
Mm-hmm.
the core of this, and to see already those themes coming up,
Mm-hmm.
which they would, because Neptune was in Pisces in the 1800s, right before it was in Aries. We're
Yeah.
already kind of re-experiencing this theme.
Yeah.
And I think with, for instance, Greenland, I mean, you can't get more exact whenever you talk about Hispaniola being ceded to France. That's Haiti now.
Mm.
And that was a French territory, and they just gave away land that had people in it,
Mm-hmm.
and even those two things go together. Like you're saying, there's a reason people leave.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, being displaced by weather is one, and just being oppressed and suffering. And so Neptune's association is really with love and ending suffering, right? That is Neptune's association. Neptune can cause suffering. I think it looks like in the beginning of a transit, Neptune's more likely to,
Mm.
I guess, expand on that suffering, because that's exactly how you end it. And it's the same with Pluto and Aquarius. Right now, we're not seeing the power to the people. What we're seeing is the disempowerment to the people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which the empowerment doesn't come until the disempowerment. Um, I think the one that really doesn't surprise me is the wars, because when you have human suffering and you have people being oppressed, it's inevitably going to lead to war if there are any
Yeah.
good humans left on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we both say all that to say this is a very important transit. It will go back into Pisces, just as it did at the Civil War, April 12th or April 13th, 1861. It moved back into Pisces for a second and then went back into Aries again throughout, actually, probably the beginning of the Civil War. It did that a few times. Um, so it will go back in. When it's there for good will be next year. And that will
Mm.
also be something to watch when we know it's not going to retrograde.
Yeah.
But this does have my attention. And it has my attention also because, like you said, Mars trine Saturn. It's good, I guess, on a personal level. If you want to get something done, that's a great time to do your budget,
Mm-hmm.
because you'll be ready to do it. And I am
Mm-hmm.
typically ready to work, but then there's I guess, the macro level of the
Mm.
malefics working together during this. And the moon's square Mars even at this ingress. And that
Yeah.
is like, oh, why does
Well,
the
and
moon want?
Uranus is
Mhm,
sextile both of them at that
mhm,
point.
mhm. Amazing to me because I just remember, and I will say this, I've looked at this time period for years, and now being here is really strange.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess it's not, at least yet, it's not quite as crazy as I expected it to be.
Mm.
Because you look at all the themes and you're like, oh no, there may be
Mm.
war, but it's gonna look different, especially with the, I guess, involvement of Uranus, I think.
Well, and also we don't see everything that happens just from our own
True.
perspective. So like so much could be happening, so much could be beginning with those sextiles that we don't we aren't aware of until later. It could also it all be kind of the whole machine really turning at that point, but we just don't know it until it comes a little bit later.
That is so true. And Neptune in Pisces is really good at deception. It's a really good
Mm,
veil to deceive
hmm.
people under. And I think more than anything, Neptune moving into Aries may rip the veil off. And that
Hmm.
is going to be the biggest problem. You do have a few other things, though, in Pisces. So it's still, the veil's still there. It's not
Hmm.
quite where we can see. But if you look at the next one, there is Saturn, I guess. Oh, well, that's when it hits it retrograde.
Oh yeah,
I want to
yeah.
look at it direct. So here is where it's going to be pretty
2026.
crazy. Yeah, and especially when Saturn moves in because they meet at 0.
Hmm. Yep.
And you can
Oh
see
wow,
that
it's a
triangle still
year
there?
a year from today.
Oh my God, it sure is. This is the, like, oh my God. But a triangle is still there, but it's not still there because now there is no beautiful sextile at this moment.
Mm.
Um, we do have a little Pisces, but that won't last long. And then it's just Neptune, Saturn, and Aries. I just wanted to, I think I wanted to spend a lot of time on this specific thing, and I'm glad we did because it probably
Well, and
has
look
my
where Jupiter
attention.
is. Jupiter is at 16 Cancer,
Uh-huh.
and right now Mars is about that. It's stationing at
That's
17.
true. That is so true. Like I
It'll
could
be
say
it'll be like
this.
22 degrees at the ingress, I think. Is that what it is?
Yeah. This is today's chart on the outside. This is the Saturn
Hmm.
ingress into Aries with Neptune there. Um, yeah, so now you see what time we've been recording this.
Yeah.
Pluto hasn't moved much. But yeah, Mars being in Aquarius is something that gets my attention because it retrograded in Leo to begin with this
Mm-hmm.
year. So, and
Yeah.
after this, and really after Uranus in 2026 moves on, you're going to have everything in brand new signs.
Yeah.
And
For a
then the
while.
eclipses will change. So
Yeah, it,
here we
it feels,
go.
I know it's the same, but it feels like this eclipse series is going to go by quickly. It feels like we go into the Leo Aquarius ones
Yeah.
quick.
When does that first happen? Okay, so yeah, August of 2026. I think that also speaks to the way time's probably going to move
Mm.
here, especially when Mars goes direct.
Hmm.
Um, Everything else is direct. I know Mercury will be retrograde for a minute, but after that, I think time's just gonna until the winter.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. But see, the sextiles, see, they're so pretty. This is August of 2026, and this is what
Hmm.
I mean, the kind of the Renaissance stuff astrologers have been writing about, like,
Yeah.
oh, it may be hard, but then there's a Renaissance, and you
That
hope so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a renaissance, but art is usually made when the political and economic environment is pretty bad. Like, good art is not made out of places that don't have trouble. Like,
Very true.
art that comes out of like very peaceful, well-adapted individuals is usually not very interesting.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, I mean, can we go back to just the ingress of Aries,
I was gazing at
Neptune?
this. I was like, oh, look at
don't
that.
don't be distracted.
I know.
Because is it Ren Butler that talks about the different like phases of pregnancy and birth, and like
Oh
that
yeah, here we go.
that Neptune is being in the womb, like being ultimately connected, floating in amniotic fluid, just floating inside the womb, and that fits for me for Neptune and Pisces. But then like what
Hmm.
happens when it's like the self-awareness of being the individual at the same time of being in that floaty space. And once you have the once you gain consciousness, you want to break out of your circumstances. It's kind of just the how things happen. And so I think that's what gives me concern about Neptune Aries is like, I can see how we're all connected and I don't like it. I don't
Yeah.
want to be connected to that. I want to sever. Mars is severing. And it's like, I want to empower myself. I want to differentiate myself. I want to fight for what I want. I don't want to be connected to all of you shitheads. I want to like have my own thing. And so there's like but then also, if we think of, okay, well, Neptune symbolically, you're in the womb, you're connected, everything is limitless. So like the limitlessness of severance and the limitlessness of injury and war and fighting, I think also exists with Neptune Aries. That also concerns me. And
Hmm.
so, but then I think, okay, well, there's many other ways Neptune has been in Aries. It doesn't mean that we've destroyed humanity every single time because we wouldn't be here. So what else can there be? Empowerment, speaking truth, doing what the heart calls, like leaping because you're doing like a righteous act, not understanding the limits because you're just doing what the right thing is. Like to me, fire placements, fire signs have that illumination of just ultimate truth. Like they are led by that illumination of truth. And that in itself can be delusional. But a lot of times it's just like you need that bold action to kind of cut through the intellectual bit and the comforts of earth and like the emotional turmoil of water. The fire can just like burn right through it and just get to the truth. And so hopefully the Aries Neptune will also offer us that of like seeing how we're connected with righteousness and not self-righteousness, like just doing the righteous act and being connected in that way, acting for our own best interest. But I won't lie,
Yeah.
like Uranus and Gemini, I'll take it. Aquarius, Pluto, I'll take it. Neptune and Aries with
Aries.
Saturn following. I'm like,
I know.
oh
That's the
boy.
one.
I don't want to fear monger because like I don't tremble in fear. I almost died once.
Hmm.
And after experiencing that, I'm like, you know, yeah, so what?
It's
I'm
really
gonna
the worst
die.
that could happen.
Yeah, it's
And you're going to
literally
do
the
it
worst that could
anyway.
happen. Like I don't want to leave my son motherless. I don't want to leave my
Sure.
family and friends. And I chose to come back. Like I was
Hmm.
in the hospital and I heard a voice drop into my head say, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to fucking live." After that,
Hmm.
when I look at transits like this, I'm like, that scares me. And
Hmm.
I'm going to choose every day. I'm going to choose joy and art and friends and justice and equity and good food and clean water. And I'm going to fight every day because like that's like we can make hell on earth or we can make heaven on earth. And I'm going to do my part to make mine as
Hmm.
fun and sustainable as possible. But with
And that's
Neptune,
Aries.
that's Aries.
Survival.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's like, it's invigorating because I'm like, there's a big bad transit coming my way. What am I going to do about it? Well, I'm going to do the best that I can because that's all that I
Hmm.
can do.
Yep. I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful way to put it. And that's what I've been tuning into as well. No matter what, you're going to, I mean, you're going to at least put in the work to survive, to
Yeah.
be that Aries alive self that, busts forth out of the womb. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden you're breathing and living. And honestly, it's not that I invite anything, bad or anything like that, but the world has become so vapid and
Mm.
so transactional and
Mm.
weird and internet based, and it just doesn't, it's like so a lot of times you go, why am I working?
Hmm.
What is it for?
Yeah.
It's not really, so I think in that way I do welcome the enlivening part
Mm.
of it, to
Yeah.
like reconnect you to that primal part of
Purpose.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's probably the best silver lining that we got with that, is the you're gonna feel like doing stuff, like that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as far as the fear mongering goes, it's like I know there's really nothing anyone can say when you say this last happened, this that's really in my speeches or my talks or whatever I give. I just say the last time this happened was 1861. Or
Mic
the
drop.
last time, yeah, and the last time this happened, and Uranus and Gemini as well. I hate to
Yeah.
say it, but it's pretty related to things that are not exactly easy to digest. So it's not that you can avoid it, it's just a pattern that comes
Hmm.
back around.
Yeah.
But we do have autonomy. That's what Aries is about. We do have a choice in how we deal with it. Like the conscientious objector from your
Mm-hmm.
family that we were
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Man, I can tell Mercury's anoretic today, isn't it? I cannot speak. It is horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's it's going to be what it is, and I think knowing the date is about the best you can do
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
now. Maybe buy rice and beans. I don't know. That might be okay.
Yeah. Well, and I'm almost looking at, so the eclipse happens 2 weeks before this. When we
Mhm.
were talking about the South Node eclipse happening in Virgo, the dust that's kind of just being kicked up. And, if you want to prepare for this moment, I would look at that moment. I would look at the eclipse of like, okay, well, in the zombies show, if I was going to have a weapon, what would it be? Am I the medicine maker? Am I the guard dog? Am I going to have a machete, or am I going to have a baseball bat? Like, it's about being prepared. It's like, but also being prepared is like, what's going to slow me down? What's going
Yeah.
to keep me from being like the best version of myself? Is it just having these relationships with people that just really take from me, and I don't really feel like they're reciprocal? Like, consciously choosing to just cut them out to have the bandwidth for the things that you are better served for? Is it like quitting your job? I mean, that is common during like these eclipse moments of like getting fired or quitting your job, to be like, I have had it. I
Mhm.
need to let that go so that I can further what I really want to do, because I feel like my job is happening to me. I'm not actually doing my job. I mean, like that eclipse, it feels like it's like kind of preparing us, even though um, uh, Aries and Virgo don't see each other by traditional sight, but they do have Antisha with each other. And
Mhm.
so there is like this like connection. They're the moments. It's the sun story. The sun gains strength and and Aries, and then it begins to lose it once it hits that equinox point from Virgo into Libra. So it's like they have that shared connection. And I just feel like that maybe that eclipse might like whatever happens there might be your like game pass for your zombie apocalypse of Neptune Aries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that vibe. And it also gives you something to, plan your calendars with and to look
Mm-hmm.
at. And,
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm going to be going out in crowds on the 30th or like,
Mm.
and you might already
Go
know,
scuba
like,
diving.
because it's definitely not that or get involved with any pirates. But
Yeah.
with Venus and Mercury going retrograde, I think we are clued into it. And it could be, and watch around those times, around March 14th, around, March 1st and uh, March 15th is when Mercury goes retrograde. But those moments are going to be giving you little hints, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like, oh, Trump put a tariff on this, and you go, wait a minute, that's not good because of this,
Mm.
then you just think about it. And knowing March 30th is coming and how can you prepare? It's all of these little moments that
Mm-hmm.
all equal the programming that we're all in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that like there's two command in our calendar. There's March 1st and March 4th. And I like that Venus is marching first. She's like marching first to be kind of this plan ahead for whatever happens. I think that's wise though. It's like, what, look at March 1st, what happens? And think of
yeah.
like, okay, what's the end of the month look like? Is something happening today that maybe I just need to go ahead and replace my dishwasher because the cost of the cost of those is going to
Yeah.
go up. I want to save myself some money, so I'm going to do that. Like mundane little things like that. Or
Mhm.
some sort of email comes through with your corporate job and you're like, I should get my CV ready. I should just get it ready, because I feel like in a month's time, maybe my situation is going to change. Whatever, like look for the little flags that come up. And the tarot, that last decan of Virgo is the 10 of coins. And it is such a end of the story card. And the fact that like that, the South Node is there, it's like definitely end of the story. Look at the 11th house. Sorry, look at that's my 11th house. Look at your Virgo house. What's happening that needs to just wrap up and end? Like go ahead and wrap it up, and then so that it can like help the survival or the navigation or whatever for your Aries house.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe that's like when I'll actually deactivate my Twitter account. I haven't been on it in forever, but I just kept it up there, and that's my 11th house. So I'm just thinking of like social media for me.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess with that, we'll show you the calendar one more time. Why not? So that we can get another look at it with, um, I always like to do this. So do you have a favorite day?
I'm going to stick with the 19th right there in the
Yeah.
middle. That final, maybe I'll have, I don't know, Sun
Especially
Neptune.
now that we talked about Neptune moving into Aries, it's like, yeah, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe it
Maybe I'll
wasn't
have like
so,
maybe I'll go. There's a hot springs is opening up their hot tubs again
yeah.
a couple of weeks before. So maybe I'll go like soak in some mineral baths, or I don't know. That's just the day that I feel like that might be just a really fun day for art and creativity and meditation. And I've been taking a lot of lion's mane, and it's been really activating kind of my dream structure. And so maybe I'll just do like a really heavy dose of lion's mane before meditation. Like that to me, that's the one of like, I like that. On the 14th, I'll be giving, I'll be at a market here in Asheville and be giving tarot readings for people on the
Love it.
eclipse. So I'm kind of looking forward to that as maybe being the beginning and the end of some things for me. Maybe I don't know, give up astrology. Probably not at all, but
I know. Who knows?
yeah,
Who knows?
those 2 days, the 14th and the 19th, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
What about you?
I agree with the 19th. I think I'm also looking forward to the Kazemi of Venus, the
Mm,
22nd, the Venus star point. I think that might be nice, but yeah, I agree with you. The 19th looks quite nice. And I
yeah,
think the one I'm least looking forward to is probably going to be the 30th, just because of the
yeah.
nature of what it's associated with. But, the 26th Mars square Chiron, it might smart a little bit.
Hmm.
But other than that, I mean, I think it looks like it's just a month of change,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the eclipse being trine Uranus, and Uranus is active in this stuff. So lots of new change.
And April is going to be a continuation of a lot of this too. I
Mhm.
mean, like April doesn't really have much of its own identity outside of what's happening in March.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about it when we get there, but it really is going to be. It's like a 6 week month. Is what it feels like.
I noticed this month had it started with moon in Aries and ends with moon in Taurus. So it's like this month is
Oh yeah,
definitely more than a month.
yeah, yeah. That's what January felt like. So we'll see how March is.
Yeah.
February's going pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah, it does help to be looking at the next month and for
Mhm,
it to move fast.
mhm.
Good. That was really I think I finally got enlivened and awakened. I had my daughter had her teeth pulled today and it's just been kind of a weird day, but I think
On
I finally,
purpose. It was
yeah,
pulled on purpose. Yeah.
on purpose. Yes, she's getting braces. I know
Yeah.
it's going to be great, but she was hilarious and my brain was just, bleh, but I feel like I made it.
Yes. On the
And
other
I was
side.
able to talk and everything's okay. But thank you guys for watching all of this big mess that
Yeah.
I am at least. Chris is never a mess.
I'm a mess from like here down.
You present well. You
Yeah.
present well.
Yeah. I'm just a torso. Yeah. No other parts of my body. Yeah, if you listen to the February episode, like comment, let us know what happened, and even comment under this one. If you have a March birthday, let us know what your solar return looks like, because I think having a solar return in March, I'm interested to see what your hubby's solar return looks like, having that in there, because that gives you, the solar return gives you like a vision for just the whole year, and like what kind of signature is baked into the year. So yeah,
March
we love.
birthdays. Yeah. We
Yeah,
love you guys.
or if you're pregnant and you have a baby that's being born under this, I mean, like talk about some like spiritual revolutionaries that are going to be born this month. So yeah,
For sure. Yes, please like, comment, share, subscribe, all that stuff that I think I'm supposed to tell people to do.
Like and subscribe.
I'm Mandi with Ecstatic Astrology.
I'm Christa, Practical Astros, and thanks for joining us. This is our full year. Full year. We've done a whole year of forecasting together.